like a beautiful swan.
Girl,
On a
wow.
hoop for a moment in time.
I was really, really, really amazed.
What? Really?
Yes.
Well, after you did it a few times, it became easier. Thank God.
And life always gets easier when you have a coach around you who tells you and reminds you to focus on what is important. And that's why we brought in Sheila Singam, who is a trainer and coach who has a passion for helping others unleash their potential to achieve success. Her company, Human Equations in Berhad, is in the business of imparting emotional and spiritual intelligence skills to corporations looking to maximize the potential of their workforce. Now, last month, she was here to help us project what we want to attract. And this month, she returns to explain to us why it is important for us to really know our values. Welcome back, Sheila.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us again. Now, we always talk about values, sharing our values, how important it is to know our values. But can you explain to us the definition of our values?
Okay. Basically, values are what we want.
Yeah.
Values are like the deepest motivator to human behavior. Our behavior is governed by many things, right? What we do, what we produce, the behavior we produce. It's governed by the thoughts that go through our mind, the way we are feeling, the state we're in, the way our body is feeling. You know, like if you're feeling very weak and unwell, you can't go out there and, you know, perform, you know, do teaching or training or talking or games. But if you're feeling really, you know, healthy and fit, then you can go out there and do a lot more stuff, right? Now, in addition to this, what we call the filters that really, really govern how we behave are our cognitive styles, the programs that we have in our brain that cause us to behave in certain ways, also our belief systems and our values. Amongst all of these elements, the deepest of all, the most profound, are our values. They're just basically what we really, really want right down from the inside.
Right.
Okay?
But where do we get our values from?
Well, basically, values are shaped from the time we are born. Usually from the age of from 0 to 7 years is what we call the imprint period. And then from 7 to 14 is what we call the modeling period. And after that is the socialization period from 14 to 21. And from 21 onwards to about, say, 25 is what we call the business values are being shaped, right? So we get our values from various places. We get it from our parents, schools, religious teachers, our peers. You know, as you go along, and teenagers all kind of have like similar values. We got to belong together, and they think alike, dress alike. So that's modeling each other. And then as you go along out and start mixing around with people, growing into adulthood, you also adopt the values from different people. So sometimes institutions impart values, you know, religious schools, churches, the schools that we go to as well, public school values and private school values. If you look at kids from both those different backgrounds, they're very, very different values, you know. So, and then culture also helps to shape our values, help us to form our values. So religion, so there's just many elements that help us to shape the values. And we can have different values in different areas of our life. You know, if you look at your health values, your career values, your relationship values, and many other areas, you might have differing values in terms of what is the hierarchy of what's most important. But if you were to look at all these areas of your life, you would find that there are some core values that are very similar, which kind of permeate into every area of your life.
Yes, and we want to find out if these values can change or if they should change over time. But we have to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with Sheila in a bit.
You're still watching Vbuzz with me, Shankri and Juanita, and we are still speaking to Sheila, who is the managing partner at Human Equations in Berhad and also an NLP trainer.
Now, before we took a break, we were talking about your values, knowing your values, you know, from being a child to mirroring in your teenage years. But can our values change over time, and should they change over time?
Yes, definitely. Our values can change over time, and they should change over time. Okay, Claire Graves spoke about 8 levels of values, right? The highest being number 8, and we progress from number 1 right up to number 8. So at different times of our life, different things will be important. When you're young, it's maybe all about how you look and friends and having fun and excitement and things like that. Then maybe as you get married, settle down, have children, family becomes a value that's more important. Growth, spirituality. As you grow older, to my age perhaps, then spirituality and higher values become more important. So what people need to do is to evaluate the values at least once every 3 to 5 years. Even corporations need to do this. You can't, if you're a corporation that started 30 years ago, be espousing the same values now 30 years down, because everything has changed. The people have changed, the type of people you've changed, maybe your business activities have changed, your objectives have changed. Yeah, the environment, business environment's changing. So you need to at least, every company, every human being needs to at least evaluate their values at least once every 5 years. You get someone to elicit the values, and it's simple. Just getting someone to ask you 2 questions. What's important to you about life, or whatever area you want to elicit your values? What's important to you about life, or what's important to you about your career? And if you had that, what would you have? And if you had that, what would you have? Just those 2 questions. I know 2 questions, but so profound, because what happens is people start flashing out values. Now, values are words like, things like, they're not tangible. Okay, values are not tangible. They're things like integrity, respect, growth, excitement, adventure, fun, family, spirituality, words like that. We call them frozen words. They're not like what I want to do, but they're what I want to actually have at a higher level. And the more sort of kind of ambiguous the values, they're actually values at a higher level. Like say spirituality would actually sit above family, let's say. So ultimately, spirituality, if it's your number 1 value, it will govern everything else that you do.
So the values that you are speaking right now, Sheila, they're good values, spirituality, being honest and trustworthy. But how do I know if my values are right values?
Okay, it's all about the feeling that you have inside. Now, there are many people out there who don't know what their values are.
True.
Right? And they feel this sense of being disconnected with life. They feel a sense of frustration, unease, dissatisfaction inside of themselves. So when people come to me like that and they say, well, I just don't feel good about life, and yeah, my career is progressing the way it should, but I don't feel good inside. So first thing I would do is to elicit their values. Or someone comes to me and say in a relationship and says, relationship's not going on very well, but I love him and I want this to work. And when I elicit the values, I find that love is like on the hierarchy of values number 10. Other things are important, respect and companionship and humor and all that. So if those values are not being fulfilled, the next question I would ask once I have your list of values is to ask you, how would you know if it's being fulfilled? How would you know you're being respected? And then I would ask them, are you being respected in the relationship? Right? It's the same thing you go with even at an organizational level. You've got your list of career values. And many people work for years and years in an organization and they're not happy.
Yeah.
Right? So what I do is I elicit their values and I ask them, are these values being fulfilled right now? Is satisfaction being fulfilled? Is wealth creation being fulfilled? Is integrity being fulfilled? If those values are not being fulfilled, hey, that's why you're not happy working there. So 2 things, you either align with the way the organization is doing things, or you go somewhere else where it's fulfilling your values. And it's the same with relationship, it's the same with career, it's the same with health. Any area of your life where you are not satisfied, you're feeling a sense of unhappiness, discontent, go back and look at your values, because chances are, because they are the deepest driver, motivator of human behavior, chances are if those values are not being fulfilled, not being met, that could be the crux of the problem.
Right. So if I am surrounding myself with people who are not sharing the same values or not respecting my values, it does cause a conflict inside, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So should I make an effort to surround myself with people who share the same value?
I would strongly advocate that. Now, we discussed rapport in an earlier program, and I mentioned that the definition for that is the recognition of and willingness to share values, right? So if you have the same values as someone else, chances are you're going to get into rapport with them more easily.
Right.
You get along and have deeper, meaningful relationships with them more easily. Now, I myself personally, I mean, I'm a lot older than you ladies, and I can tell you that my values have changed over the years. And today, I do sense that there is a disconnect sometimes between the people that I used to, have a great time with, and now they're still my friends. I still love them dearly, but it doesn't mean I want to go and like spend all my time with them and do all kinds of stuff with them, because I've moved on in a different direction with my values, but they're kind of still espousing the same values that they did 10 and 20 years ago. So it's a different direction, so to speak. So it is recommended to go and be with people whose values are aligned with yours, because together you can produce more, you can produce better energy, and you can do things together which are more meaningful to all
Synergistic
parties.
effect.
Very much so. Yeah.
But that's in an ideal situation where you surround yourself around people who share the same values.
Okay.
Sometimes you just can't do that.
True.
So how do you realign your values, personally and also professionally?
Well, first thing is, rather than realigning your values, you got to go on the premise of respecting the other person's model of the world. So if someone is very much into fun and excitement, and you're going on a path of spiritual growth, it doesn't mean you can't be friends, right? But you've got to learn to respect that those are their values, and they've got to learn to respect your values, and you mutually accept each other's values. Realigning your values, that's changing the hierarchy of your values, comes about when a particular hierarchy is not working for you at that point in time. I'll give you my own example. When I started business, I had all these high values like growth and helping people and altruism, integrity and congruence and all that, right? So very nice. But wealth creation was like somewhere very low in the hierarchy of values. Now, if you're running a business, if you're a business person, you need to move that higher up. And it's not unecological, it's ecological, because if you don't have that value in your business values, then you're not going to be making money, and in the long run you're going to be disappointed, going and starting your own business, and you're going to think it doesn't work and all that. So I worked with a fellow coach, a fellow NLP trainer, and I got her to realign and take that value of wealth creation and put it up on top. Because as we are starting a business, you need to do that. So I realigned it and put it on top. And then I began to be more savvy about money matters,
Because money is important to run a business.
Yeah. I do this in relationship values as well, because if, say, a couple has got values and the top 5 values are very different, then I would sit down with them and get them to negotiate who's willing to accept the values from the other person, and who's going to be willing to accept the values from each other, and then we realign and maybe put 2 or 3 of the some common values at the top of their hierarchy of values, and ask them, how would you know this is being fulfilled? So we do this for a time until their relationship is aligned and they're back together again, in harmony with each other.
Right.
So let's say I go back and I write down my values. Do I need to review it later on? Do I need to review my values later on?
Well, it's good to, first thing I would say is getting someone to, it's easier if you get someone to ask you what you want in life, and if you have that, what would you have, and just keep getting out your values, and then you go and rank it. Once you look at that and know what are your first 5 values, you will actually know why you are the way you are, why you're not happy, or why you're functioning the way you are, or what is it that motivates you. All right, so once you know that, look at your values from time to time, regularly, and ask yourself, how am I living out my values? And that will help you to actually be really, really true to yourself.
Yes. Okay. Speaking of that, it's important to know your values, but staying true to your values is really something else. How does one ensure that you have your values and you are constantly reminded that that is your values and your way of life is in accordance to those values?
Well, I would advocate writing down your top 10 values, putting it up somewhere on a wall or something, or your vision board, for example, and looking at them and asking yourself daily, is my behavior align to fulfilling these values. It's the environment I'm surrounding myself with, the activities I'm doing, the people I'm, passing my time with, the career I'm in. Is everything, are all these things aligned to fulfilling each of those values? If your top 5 values are not being fulfilled, I can tell you you're not going to be contented with life. All right, so go and look, are your top five being fulfilled? And if some of them are not, then look at how you can change what you're doing, what you're producing in your life to fulfill those values. Then you would find happiness.
There's the key of happiness right there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Sheila, for coming and sharing with us about our values and how important it is to list down our values and to live by them.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. So, guys, you have it there. Know your values and stay true to your values.
Yes.
And what's coming up tomorrow in Vbuzz, Juanita?
Tomorrow.